I know it's been a while. I know it's been weeks and months since I released my latest video. I know some of you have been wondering, where has she been? For those who have subscribed to my YouTube channel, maybe you follow my Facebook page. There seems to have not been much that I've been posting lately. And one of the reasons why is that I have been struggling. I have been struggling spiritually. I have felt that spiritual burned out. I was reaching a place spiritually where I could not see clearly and I could not hear clearly God. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about. This is where I want to share with you in an authentic and genuine way where I have been, what I have been dealing with, and how God has been dealing with me. And allow me to first say that I started doing videos when I took a camera when I was in high school. I shot a documentary in Ghana on leadership when I went on an African Leadership Summit in Accra, Ghana. I made my first documentary. Then I made a second documentary on an association in Rwanda that I was helping raise funds for children with HIV/AIDS. I have then in college that's when I started making videos. So I didn't start today. I started a while ago. I loved it. I was passionate. But something happened recently. Something happened that shook me. Something happened that I was not expecting. It's easy to have faith when things seem to go your way. But let me start by saying that 2020 has not been quite the year. It has not been moving the way I have expected. It has not been moving in the way that I wanted. Let's say that my birthday is January 26th, all right? You all make sure you don't forget next time. But January 26th is my birthday. In the morning when I was getting ready for my birthday, I hear that my mentor died. My mentor, my spiritual guide, my advisor, the person that I could go to, my safe space, my person that I knew that was helping me in the way I was growing in ministry and in the way I was doing ministry. And when he died, I crushed. Now, if you know grief seasons, some days are easier, some days are hard. I struggled. I'm not gonna lie. After his death, I struggled. I did not know how to continue to move, because what happened was my grief was so loud that I could not hear God comforting me. My grief was so loud that I could not see that God was with me. My grief was so painful that it was hard for me to see the people that were trying to love me and be there for me. It was really, really hard to lose my spiritual mentor, my guide, Mr. Michael Grant. Now, what I'm here to talk to you about, I'm not here to tell you how my life has been and my grief, but what I'm here to really talk to you about is that what happened is during that time, I took time away. I took time away to reflect, not only because of the grief and the loss, but also because of the pandemic, the ability to not be able to move a lot, the ability to not speak in many places. It has allowed me to think and reflect. Reflect on my life, reflect on my spiritual journey, reflect on my ministry, reflect on my call, reflect on my leadership, reflect on my communication style, just doing different reflections, right? And as I was doing that, something happened. My father, my biological father, my dad, I love my dad. If my dad is watching this, Dad, I love you. My dad is a man who does not speak a lot. We don't spend hours speaking on the phone together. But here's the thing. My dad is a man who says few words or does few action but with big impact. So what my dad did, he sent me these emails, 2 emails I sent him and my mother. It was in September of 2012. It was even before my ordination. And in that email, I'm writing with passion and zeal, and I'm giving him, I'm like, Dad, this is where I'm going to preach. I'm like, Dad, I'm excited. I'm excited for the people I'm going to meet. I'm excited to see how God is going to use me. I'm excited, right? And my dad sent it to me recently. And my dad, this is what he was trying to tell me. My dad was trying to tell me, remember your why. Remember that what you're doing, you're not doing it for the views. You are doing it for him who has called you. Remember the passion that you had when you started. Remember that it was always this person that you were that was deeply in love with God. It wasn't about you having speaking opportunities. It wasn't about you, having people who were following you. It was the fact that you just loved what you did. You just loved knowing that God was going to use you to just make a difference in someone's life, even if it was one person. My dad reminded me, don't just do what you do. Remember your why. Don't just do things because it's a routine. Do something because you remember your why, because of that first love, because you love what you're doing, but you love who is doing it through you. Remember that you're not just preaching to people, you also have to experience that gospel. Because people can always tell when your message is genuine. People can always tell that what you're giving them, you are living it. People can actually always tell when you are actually speaking from a place of revival or from a place of theory. People can always tell when you're actually telling them things you learned in seminary and things you learned on your knees. The people can always tell when you're doing things for views and when you're doing things to elevate others. People can always tell. I'm thankful for my dad. My dad reminded me, go back in that space where it was you and God. And I know that you're grieving and your grief is hard, but go back in that place. But now in that place, you are going as a grieving person. Go back in that place. That place where you were before you were ordained, or that place you were before you were Dr. Ornella. Go back to that place who you were before you were Pastor Ornella. Go back to that place when you could spend hours with God in prayer without always checking your hours and your schedules and always checking in your WhatsApp and who's calling you, because now people can stop calling you. But then you had time to talk to God. And Dad was saying, go back to that place, to that person who will get so excited like a kid whenever you were invited to speak, and you saw it in a humble way. Now, I'm not trying to say that I am arrogant. I think what my dad is trying to say is that remember your why. And I think that the more we walk with Christ, sometimes we forget our why. We forget why we chose to walk with Christ. We forget why we chose to say, God, I am giving you my life. We forget why we chose to get baptized. We forget why we decided to call ourselves Christians, Christ-like. We forget why. Because we got used to that relationship. We're used to God. Then now we are operating our faith from a place of knowledge, but not a place of experience. Do you remember your why? Do you remember that time when you loved God? You loved spending time with God? Do you remember that time when you actually had time to read the Bible? Do you remember that time when you read every word in the scriptures and there was a love of it? Do you remember that time when you enjoyed hearing a sermon? Do you remember that time when you just enjoyed spending time with God? Do you remember your why? The why of your faith, the why of your walk with God. Do you remember your why? Because if we don't remember our why, if we don't go back to that place with God, what we do is that we don't love people. We preach things, we preach messages that don't change lives because we ourselves are empty. We are trying to give. For me, I just felt like I don't want to make videos for people. I want to give a message of that I am going through. I want to give messages that I am applying. I want to give messages that I can show people that you can walk with Christ and still grieve. You can walk with Christ and still have a spiritual burnout. It doesn't mean that you are not a person of faith. It means that you are a person of faith who is human. That there is divinity in you and there is humanity in you as well. Because if we forget our whys, we will become Christians who tell people what to do and not people who reflect Christ. We will just be empty buildings. And for me, I love the fact that when my dad sent me that, I went back in that place. That place I was. I mean, it is not just our relationship with God. Some people are in relationships, and the way you used to talk to your partner, you talked for hours, you used to compliment each other, but now you don't. You got used to each other. You used to love your job, and now you don't care. You got used to it. Now we are moving in life, in relationships, in marriages, in the way we raise our kids, as if it's just a routine. We forgot our why. Now you can't stand your partner. But do you remember your why of what you got together? Do you remember why you chose that job? Do you remember your why? Some of us have businesses. We started our businesses and now we're getting tired and we want to give up and say, you know what? I don't want to keep having this business. I thought it was a good idea, but it is not that you're not good at it. It's maybe you're having a burned out. But do you remember your why? Are you able to go back in that space with you and God when God used to pour into you? Do you feel like now spiritually you just move for the sake of moving? Some of us are empty. Some of us, we are trying to fill other people, our relationships, finding strength for work. Are you tired? Are you dry out? Do you feel burned out? Do you get exhausted? Do you feel like you have nothing else to give? And that's where I realized that what I have to give, only God can fill. Because I can't give when I'm empty. I can't do ministry if I'm empty. I can't love if God is not pouring love into me. I can't give if I am empty. And my father reminded me, remember your why. Because it is in the space that you loved to spend time with God that you always came out to give so much to people. Remember your why. Because if we can remember our whys, maybe we can start realizing that the things that we're trying to find peace in, the people we're trying to hope that they will fill us, that only God can do it. Only God can fill us. I'm back. Guess who's back? I'm back. Now, I am thankful to people who were patient with me. I am thankful for people who checked on me during my grief. I am thankful for people who were kind to me. And I also want to remind you that maybe some of you are feeling like the way I was. You're feeling like you have nothing to give. You used to be the wisest, the funniest. You feel like you have no jokes to tell. You used to be the party person. You don't want to see people. You feel dried out mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially. But I'm learning that in order for us to give to those around us is to allow God to pour into us. Because if we don't remember our whys of why we love God and why we follow Christ, if we don't remember our whys, we will not be Christians. We will not be Christ-like. We will just become Pharisees. We will just know the law, but we will not be transformed. We will know what to tell people, but we will not be transformed. We will be the most judgmental people who speak of Christ but don't know Christ because we are empty. Some don't want to pick up calls. Some of you maybe feel like, I don't want to talk to no one. I'm just exhausted. I want to stay in bed. I have no energy. I don't want to do things I used to do. I don't want to work on my business idea. I am tired of this pandemic. I am tired. I feel stuck. You feel stuck. You feel empty. You feel burned out. Remember that we cannot give when we're empty. And maybe this is a cry out that only God can fill you up. Because even the Bible says that those who seek Him find Him. So my prayer for you, as it is a prayer for me, is that we always remember our why we follow Christ.